Welcome back to another episode of Hangin with Mr. Francis podcast. I am your host, Mr. Francis, and we are tuning in to another episode, 23, The Everything Bubble. Now, I don't know if you can hear the music in the background. I decided to add some Zen music to this episode. Woosah. So that way, I don't lose my train of thought in realizing how crazy of a time we are in right now. Yes, we are in a crazy time right now. Whether you like it or not, or realize it or not, we're in some very treacherous waters right now. I feel it. I definitely feel it. I don't know if anyone else feels it, but I do. So before we begin, as usual, I like to keep this episode or any episode short as possible to not talk your ear off. But I do also like to mention that everything I say on this podcast is strictly my opinion and my opinion only. So take it with a grain of salt. I'm not here to cause any type of fear or panic. I just want you to open your eyes or lend me your ear and listen to what I have to say. Whether you agree or disagree, I don't care. But what I want to get across is hopefully this will open your eyes, as I just mentioned, to understand what is really going on. Because I feel a lot of us don't really care about what's going on until shit gets really bad. And as I mentioned what the episode is, this episode is about the everything bubble. The everything bubble. Now what I mean by that is everything is in a bubble. The housing market, the stock market, everything. You see inflation, food prices are on the skyrocket up. Now that's a different type of bubble. That's an inflation due to supply chain breakdown and certain other factors. Now there's not going to be a specific one I'm going to speak about, but I'm just going to touch on a few things. First off, before this whole lockdown situation happened, we were destined for a market crash or a market correction, or a healthy market, as I would say. And if those can remember back in March of 2020, we were well on our way to that when everything went on lockdown mode. But a lot of shit changed. And what I mean by shit change is the government intervened like a superhero, swooping in to save the day. When really and truly what they did was kick the can down the road. Now here we are 2 years later, and we've caught up to that can that they kicked down the road. Now most people will be like, no, the can isn't even, we're not even close to the can yet. That might be true. That just might be true. But I beg to differ. Now, as I mentioned, I could be right, I could be wrong. I just look at things in my point of view and what makes sense. Common sense, which I feel is just a lost thing nowadays. The other thing that's in a type of bubble is these gas prices. Now, if anyone listening, as usual, I'm recording here in Canada. Toronto, to be exact. And the gas prices touched $2 per liter. We measure it in liters. And we have never seen that high of a gas price. Now, give or take, I believe other places in Canada has. I think Vancouver at some point saw gas prices this high on that on the West Coast, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong once again, but I remember seeing something like that before. But damn, here on the the east side of everything, we're not necessarily on the East Coast. We're just right somewhere in the middle, in Ontario, and again situated in Toronto. It's it's quite interesting that so many things are happening all at once. Everything is happening all at once. As I said, food prices are on the way up. Even car prices are on the way up. Mostly used cars, because people, yeah, if you're wealthy, if you have that moolah, you can go out and buy a new car or whatever it is, no problem, or finance. But a lot more people are choosing to hold on to their used cars. I would say that's a good idea. If you don't have payments on that used car and all you have to do is maintain it, hell, continue doing that. But with that being said, with that happening, it has caused a short supply in used cars, which has now caused a high demand for used cars. For those who are not looking to get a brand new car that's probably going to be running in a very high price range. But even used cars are getting expensive. Shortage of chips for like microchips, certain type of technology that's needed to build new cars, but also certain things that need to probably be updated in certain things. But that's besides the point. Well, it is somewhat the point. But the point I'm trying to make here is that we are in an everything bubble. And the real question is, when is some of these bubbles going to come down? And when are the ones that are overinflated from being propped up by government spending, like real estate or the stock markets? I know I'm missing a few, but these are the big ones off the top of my head. I just look at it, mainly the food one is the one that the inflation of food is quite worrying, right? Because based on reports, this isn't going to end anytime soon. Now, I know some people are like, well, this has happened in the past. That is right, it has. But not to this extent. I came across an old ad the other day. I think it was a McDonald's extra value menu. Now, this is a terrible example to use, but I'm just going to use it. And it was a price of like the McChicken, the quarter pounder and all that stuff, and the price range for the meal ranged in the highest price I think I saw on the menu was like $3.99. $3.99 for a meal. And I was advised that this particular price was sometimes in the 90s, which I can see that, because when I was in high school, I remember the McChicken meal being $4.29 before taxes, and on that menu I believe it was $2.99 a meal. Now I'm sure if you go there, the price now is like probably $10 after taxes, or probably almost $10 before taxes, something along those lines. But the point I'm trying to make is, I don't think things are going to go back to normal anytime soon, as per the reports, because we're in an everything bubble, right? I'm sorry, I'm just trying to wrap my head around it, because we're living in unprecedented times right now. And I've probably mentioned this in other episodes, but this one is strictly for what it is I'm speaking of. which is the ongoing bubble and everything. Now we might think this is something that's localized. No. This is global. I think I was watching a video of a woman speaking in India, and I think they purchase in ruples or something like that. I could be wrong. I've written down my notes. I'm not looking at it because a lot of the things that I've written down blows my mind. But back to the little story I was saying. So I'll give you an example. This woman was talking and she's like, I always go to the grocery store or to go buy vegetables. And I'm just going to use a small example. It's not completely accurate, but I'm giving an example of what she was referring to. So let's say a pound or half a pound of tomatoes were like 25 cents Canadian. Half a pound. And she said she went back. I think this was earlier this year. God knows what it is now. But the example is half a pound was like a quarter. She said now half a pound is like $1. Now can you imagine something that used to cost a quarter just drastically inflates to $1 per half a pound in such a short period of time? It puts a tight squeeze on the budget you probably already have in place because, it's hard out here. And the number one thing to survive is food. You need food, you need nutrition to feed your body, feed your soul, feed your mind, and, be able to function properly, right? But with everything that's happening right now, I am 110% sure, I want to aim that high, that a lot of people are going to feel this. Now, like I said before, if you're wealthy, you're rich, or whatever it may be, this might not affect you. But I know the middle to lower class are going to feel this. Now, who's to blame for this? I personally think the way the leaders in power handle things. Now, there's a lot of other factors, but the example of the housing market. So let's get into that, right? As I said, the market was due for a healthy correction, right? When the lockdown happened, because it was unprecedented times. Then they started printing money, quantitative easing, giving out free money, as per se. Injected money into the markets to inflate it, kicking the can down the road. And as I mentioned earlier, we're now arrived at that can, and now we're staring at that can. And that can is really heavy. So can that can be kicked a little bit further down the road? Quite possibly, if you have a strong enough foot to do it. I'm just using it as a metaphor. But I don't think we do. At least the powers that be. Because you've seen what they've done now is they've slowly started to raise the interest rates. And just by them raising it, the amount that they have, bringing the key interest rate to 1%, because we were sitting at 0.25% for quite some time. I think for a majority or all of the pandemic. Didn't want to use that word. I want to use lockdown. But I ended up using it anyways. Whatever. And now we're at the 1% key interest rate. Now, June 1st coming up. I mean, we've already seen the U.S. raise theirs again recently. I think about last week or so. Or a couple of days ago. And here in Canada, we're set to have another announcement on the 1st of June. Are they going to increase it again? Because they did mention, quite possibly, that it's going to raise 4 times in the year of 2022. Now, we've already seen it go up twice. Once at 0.25 to bring it to 0.50. And then another rate increase, which was just last month, April. bringing it up another 0.5 to equal it out to the key interest rate of 1%. And we've already seen the market react to that. And not just here, globally, you see a lot of governments raising their interest rates because they're trying to tackle this inflation situation. Doesn't that make you feel warm and fuzzy inside while listening to this music in the background? The stress level is high. Try not to stress, because the crazy part about this is that I don't think it's even started yet of the things to come. And I pray that I'm wrong. I pray that I'm wrong about this, but the writing is on the wall. Like the everything bubble in everything is it's at an insane point. We're at an inflection point right now where we have to really think, you know? Man. Oh man. I didn't really want to do this episode, but I just want to touch on the topic because how can we not take note or take notice of what's happening right now? Hell, they're trying to blame all this other shit on the war happening with Russia and Ukraine. But this was already a problem that was already on the horizon. And I just feel there's a lot of distractions, as usual, war being one of them, to get people to not see what is happening and what is to come. Because believe me, whether you believe me or not, but in my gut feeling, this is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And as that whole saying goes, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. There's reports saying that there's a coming food shortage. This was being said, I believe, months back by certain people. And a lot of people will be like, oh, that shit don't make no sense. Yeah. Obviously, there's going to be deniers. But now the media is actually reporting on things like this and saying that it's going to cause a crunch. Like, if this doesn't wake you up a little bit and have you prepare, then my goodness, I don't think you're ready for what's to come. And the whole point is not to scare you when I say things like this or put fear in your heart, but to awaken your mind, that part of your brain that's common sense, that maybe I need to stop doing certain things and maybe shift the way I'm doing things. Because the way I see it, since the whole lockdown situation happened, there has been this facade that things are going to get better. But the thing that I always notice is that they keep pushing that narrative, the new normal, for a third time, the new normal. It's what they always say, the new normal. And we are entering that stage of new normal now, where things are going to be very, very expensive. The cost of living is going to be insane. If you think it was bad before with the whole rich and poor, no, there used to be a middle class, now there isn't. It's either you got it or you don't got it. And this is where you, the people, every individual, every walks of life, have to take a step back and readjust your life. Now, if you're living on the high horse and everything is Gucci, then congrats to you. If you've managed to put yourself in a great position, that's good. That's great. But if you're in a position where you are living off, let's say, credit, or you have like debt and you're using your home as an ATM and certain things like that. Like, I've been down that road. It's not a great feeling, because when that pressure starts, your mental health starts to take a toll on you. So the point of what I'm trying to say to end off the podcast is, be aware of everything that's happening and prepare. Because it seems that we live in a time where no one really gives a shit until it gets really bad. And it shouldn't really be like that. At least if you're prepared for something to come, and you've taken notice on certain things that are happening, then at least then you would be prepared later down the road for what's coming. So that way you're not scrambling like a chicken with its head chopped off. It's a bad analogy that I used. But you get what I mean. So again, the whole point of this episode is not to fearmonger or put fear in your heart or make you... No. It's so that way you understand and see that everything isn't going to go back to what it was before this whole lockdown situation happened. It's never going back to 2019. At the turn of the new decade, 2020, everything changed. And if everything else around you is changing, you should change too. Once again, I appreciate you listening to this podcast. This is Hanging with Mr. Francis podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Francis. And I hope you enjoy this episode with a little zen in the background to keep you calm. But it's about time that you get your affairs in order, because things are not going to get any better. I hope I'm wrong. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next episode.